actually really happy with how the postcards came out this month. Alari did such a good job. I've already showed the patrons, but these are the November postcards for people who signed up in November. But as usual, if I have any left over, I will send them to anyone who signs up in December as well, if we happen to have any spares as a little gift to newbies. But these are for our Flying Squirrel tier over on our Patreon, and I love it because every month we send out a postcard, a cute little sticker, and we also send out a little thank you note that I try to get really cute memo pads from different little small business artists to support. And this month, look at how cute this is. It's Marshall with some cozy thoughts. And we've got Fauna and Maple from Animal Crossing, and I thought that would be perfect for the November postcard because Animal Crossing had that huge update last month. And it's from, let me see, I'll try to look her up properly, but Lori Tears on Etsy. And I just really love her work. I actually got a cool Brewster washi tape from her as well. Oh gosh, sorry. Oh, focus. But I got a cool Brewster washi tape from her as well that I just started using today, and it is just making me so freaking happy. So that's been really delightful. But this month we're going to be sending out our soft touch, really nice high premium quality postcards with the little field notes for the month's adventures, as well as some new envelopes. I have started decorating them with stamps and just like hand stamping them to add in a little bit of extra fun. I'm going to use some of the washi tape on the back of these to seal them. And then we've got some leaves as well. I got these when Chips and I were actually up in the mountains and we went on that little golden leaf camp trip, and I collected them because I thought it would be really fun to be able to send them to people in our Patreon mail. I don't know if they're going to get completely crushed on the way there, but it's going to be fun to go ahead and try and see. And these stickers are super special because they are actually based off of that special item you can get in Old Friends dog game that is our exclusive plant. So you can get a special planter for like the code Siri Pixel if you play the Old Friends dog game mobile game. They reached out to me and made us this like custom item to put in there because they were so tickled by our Let's Play of it, and I just love that so much. So I'm busy packing these, and today is otherwise a pretty chill day, so let's go ahead and actually give you guys the other half of the Q&A. Curiosity is never ending, at least when you're, you know, healthy and happy and in a good place. And Jacqueline, you asked me a really awesome question specific to our Sims series, and thank you so much for the eloquent way you described how much you love the naturalistic unfolding of the social dynamics and the storylines and the character development of our Sims. I really do not almost ever have a long-term game plan for my Sim stories unless it's like an ambition I know that a character as a Sim would want to accomplish. And so it's really satisfying to me to see so many of you guys love our Sim stories because the stories are so complex and because they unfold in ways that both are natural to the gameplay but also true to the character and with just a little bit of my prompting into certain directions. And I really deeply appreciate that. Like, I always think if I ever never need to worry about like YouTube again in terms of like income or having to keep views high, would I still make videos? And the answer is I'd still be here for Sims. I would still be here to share my Sim stories because it's just not the same to not be able to like share my Sims and squeal over their little adventures with no one else. I have to share it with you guys. So no matter what, even when my hair is all gone silver and probably can stretch out the door because I haven't cut it in 70 years, I will hopefully be here, if for no other reason than living up to the fact that my YouTube name, if you look at the name and the URL, it's Siri Sims. I never changed that because I feel like that's a core piece of like who I am. But Jack, you asked, which has been your favorite dynamic between two or more Sims that you've ever had? Top 3 is fine. So like basically who's my favorite couple or friend enemy or gosh, I have to say I think I loved the Eureka triplets because they were my first triplet set way back in the very first episodes that we've ever had on our gaming channel, almost 9 years ago now. I have nieces and nephews younger than that. And so I think the Eureka triplets, but then my favorite ones that make my heart really excited because their story is still unfolding are definitely going to be Fern Green and Jean Jewel, who are married secretly because they thought it was just a paper marriage, but rapidly falling in love with each other and hopefully giving me grandchildren soon. And then I would have to say I really love how things are working out for Ashley and Kai in our very soon to return, hopefully next week, with the update of the Red Lantern game, Dog Sled Saga series. So I really love their dynamic as well. And I love Ashley's friendship that she's got with oh, I can't remember her friend's name right now, but it's her roommate now. I love the friendship dynamics that developed between those three. And I love how the romantic development is starting to build up. And I'm so going to be throwing a wrench in the works as soon as I can for story purposes. It's going to be really fun. And then my third favorite is another couple. So they're all technically couples, but they were all friends or something before. But my third favorite would definitely be Ukapanikbo and oh no, I can't remember her name. That's okay, she forgot her name too. Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. I can't remember her name. Nalani, there we go. It would definitely be Nalani, and it would be Ukupanigabo from our Wedding Rags to Island Riches series, which I do want to bring back, and I've been thinking about bringing back potentially for the Valentine's saga, the Valentine's holiday. I guess it's a saga because they're a very romantic couple, and I would really like to complete the Rags to Riches challenge with her, and I would like to reveal her secret past and the challenges that lie ahead once they realize who she really is. So yeah, that's a fun series. It's none of the series that usually disappear are off the table forever. It's usually just I've been really busy or I had to pivot to keep like the channel views healthy so I can eat. But yeah, so those guys, I definitely love my Cursed Blacksmith and his Hedge Witch wife in Sims Medieval. That was amazing. I like them a lot as a couple. And I really liked the very interesting dynamic that Darian, my witch, and his Darian, my witch, and his fairy wife Gina ended up getting into, because that was not like a pure good romance. That was like sometimes they were using potions on each other or like cloning people behind each other's backs, and Darian used a love spell on her from the beginning, but Gina's gonna outlive him as a fairy, and it creates all of these interesting dynamics. And that was for our Sims 3 Supernatural series. So they were also one of my favorites. Like, I think the answer really is, if I think hard, any of the Sims I've really loved and any of the characters I've really loved are ones where I've taken the time to invest into their character. A lot of thought. It's not really hard for me, but a lot of people have asked me how I create my Sim stories and how I make them what they are. And the answer is that I just really try to think about them as characters that have their own motivations. And if I had their life experience, if I had their abilities, and if I had their wants and desires and their fears, how would I live? And then to look at the challenges, and I think that's the other big key. Sims lives, especially in Sims 4, are too easy. Make it a little harder for yourself somehow, even if it's just artificially, really setting them up against challenges, even if you're like me and you'll use random generators to sometimes take away their skill points to make things even harder. That really adds a bit of conflict, and no stories are so satisfying, I feel, and even personal stories are so satisfying when you can have a sense of accomplishment. And we truly feel that sense of accomplishment when we overcome hurdles or when we have overcome a challenge. And so give your Sims challenges that mean more to you, because if you make it more interesting for you, you're probably developing a more interesting character while you're at it. But give your Sims challenges that enrich their life, because it changed something about their world if they win or lost. That almost never happens in the game itself, ever. Like maybe they'll have a sad moodlet for 5 minutes, so you've got to do it yourself. But if you invest in it, you might end up creating stories that mean a lot to you for years to come, like the ones that we have. So there's a little advice on how to make like a fun sim story. And then, let's see, Shauna wants to know, what is my favorite mythological creature and why? That actually stumped me because I don't really have a favorite mythological creature anymore. When I was younger, I definitely did. I was totally into mythological creatures. Dragons are probably still my favorite because there's so many great ways you can make a dragon. There are so many books out there. Like, I'm not picky. If you have a good book, however you want to do your dragons is fine. I used to think if you made your dragons talk that I wasn't going to enjoy it, and then I read His Majesty's Dragon, and now I will forever be on that boat. Oh my goodness. And I used to think that if you made your dragons like have bonds, that was the best way to do things, like in the Dragons of Bern. But then I've read other books where dragons are the enemy, but the story is so rich and well developed that I love those dragons too. So I think I really love dragons because sometimes people take it in a way where we're facing another creature and we get to dive into that speculative biology, which is my favorite kind of genre to read about in fantasy, where you take like, you know, mythological creatures or creatures who don't exist in real life, and you try to apply some biology principles and laws and concepts to them. I love speculative biology, but I think that's why I like dragons, because sometimes you'll get them as animals, sometimes you'll get them as companions, sometimes you'll get them where it's a more like spiritual, magical bond between somebody that because of that bond you have this great story. But they're just very diverse. It's just really satisfying. His Majesty's Dragon, I loved that series. I am so glad it was, the whole thing, all 9 books was on sale for like 30 bucks. And I was like, okay. Because I needed to download the books and the library didn't have any copies, which is a crime if you ask me, because like, they don't even have it in the system. I think I'm gonna like buy it and donate it at some point because it's so good. I want people to be able to read it. But the 9-book series was great, so if you like dragons, I can highly recommend it. It's very different from the other dragon books I had just finished, like Dragons of Bern. It's totally different, but I really loved it, and I'm really glad I had all 9 books, because after the first 1, 2, 3 books, I was like, okay, but I'm not really into battle stuff. This is getting a little like tedious and focused on Napoleonic Wars for me, because yes, it's about dragons and Napoleonic Wars in an alternate like history setting. It's actually really, really good. But the first 3 books, if you're not into that kind of stuff, could definitely make you kind of ready to put it to the side. The last several books, the last like 4 books, let's see, or I guess it would be the last 6 books, that's where the treasure is. Keep going. So dragons, I'm gonna say dragons this time. But otherwise, my favorite creatures would be like the cow plant, which I don't know if that counts as a mythological creature. The dragonfly in The Sims 4 is actually one of my favorite creatures ever that I've seen in speculative biology, and I wish that somebody would make more about it. I love Pikmin, but we're kind of crossing a line here, because now are those mythological creatures or are they just fictional creatures? And I don't know, we're gonna have more conversations about that, because I want to do more with fiction biology and creatures in video games on our channel, and especially in our like Patreon art in the future. So keep an eye out for that, guys. And then Hannah Lore, thank you so much for your very sweet comments that you've been leaving on our Vlogmas vlogs. You asked, what is my favorite quote? And that's a very, very wonderful and powerful question that I think is super special, and something I want to remember to go around to ask you guys, and to ask my family, and to ask Chips. And I think my favorite quote, I give it a lot of thought actually. I actually took a few minutes to sit and really ponder this. My favorite quote is still going to be one that I actually love so much. I have it printed out, and it has followed me along for about, I've had this quote for about 15 years now. So, no, yeah, about 15 years. I printed it out 15 years ago. I put it in a little picture frame, and I've had this for like the last 15 years, to the point where the picture frame is chipped, but no matter where I have ever lived and no matter where I have been, I have had this out somewhere in my room, even when I didn't have much of a room to speak of. And that is Stephen R. Covey's quote, "Live out your imagination, not your history." Yeah, that's to me one of the most powerful quotes ever, because I grew up, I mean, we don't talk about it a lot because it's hard, but it was rough growing up. Where I did and when I did, especially when both my parents became disabled, and like we struggled financially a lot, and I have a lot on my shoulders, and I have a lot in my history that feels like mountains on me, that feels like, how could I ever move out from under this? And I had some very core key people close to me who let their history determine everything about their present and their future. They couldn't do this because of something that happened in their past. They couldn't do that because of something that happened in their past. They wouldn't even try to do anything in a certain direction because they were living with an identity that they picked up in the past that they refused to ever question again. Because this thing happened so many years ago, they felt like they had to stay frozen in that place so many years ago. They stayed frozen in the past and actively and aggressively refused to question if they could even see if their capabilities had changed since then, or if something was able to be accomplished. And I think we all know people like that who live according to a locked, rigid identity that they developed either for themselves or had themselves locked into by somebody else who was very core to their development when it was in the past, many, many years ago. And they might tell themselves something like, I'm too shy, I'm too anxious, I'm not good enough for that, and refuse to even take a step to see if they could do something. And I've seen so many people give all of their current energy and all of their future hope to trying to uphold an identity that doesn't serve them in any positive way, because that history seems like it's the biggest thing in their life, that they feel like that history is the biggest thing, and it's going to cast a shadow forever on who they are in the present and forever on who they could be in the future. And it's unquestionable to ever try, it's unquestionable to ever ride out the anxiousness or the fast beating heart or like the sweaty palms to try something new, because that history will forever be the shadow over your whole life, and it predetermines everything. And I lived with people I cherished deeply who I really never got to see flourish the way that you knew they had it inside of them, because no matter how you love them and no matter how much support you try to give and no matter how often you're there literally holding their hand, if somebody is determined to uphold the identity that they developed in their history, even when it hurts them, and even then when they really wish things could be different, you can only be there by their side and try just to offer what solace you can, because at the end of the day, we have to be the ones to take the step and change ourselves. And when I was growing up, very core key people to me told me that I had to live with certain identities that they tried to put on me because it made them more comfortable to be able to gather up all of my behavior or gather up all of the developing person who I was, and how confusing it is to watch somebody develop and grow, and to smush it into that rigid identity. And then I think it comes from a place of wanting to help the people you love, but when you lock someone into that identity when they're very young, in your mind, you're thinking, oh good, now if I know that I tell them they're too anxious to do anything, they can't go to the award ceremony at school because they'd be too anxious on stage. Now I know their behavior. Now I can try to just keep them in this identity. And if I do that, it's predictable because you locked a puzzle piece, or you locked a person into a puzzle piece, and you know the shape of that puzzle piece. If you tell someone, for example, you're too shy or you're too fat to go somewhere or to do something, even if that person hasn't even tried to do something yet, then in a way you could convince yourself you're trying to be helpful because at least you know the shape that you've put them in, and you can try to manipulate the world around that shape. Because the reality is we're shapeless when we're growing up and as we get older even, and it can be discomforting for some people to try to have a relationship or take care of a child under their watch that is constantly changing shape and experimenting with new shapes and isn't the same today as they were like a week or a month or a year ago. It can be really discomforting when you just want everything kind of neat and tidy and predictable, even if the predictable thing might be like kind of depressing. So that is to say, I had people who I believe did love me, but felt more comfortable giving me those rigid identities that defined my history, that tried to cast a shadow over my future forever. And I know that I would not be the person I am today if I lived out that idea that I am my history, because everything I have accomplished has been because I have put that all aside and lived by one of Eckhart Tolle's philosophies of being in the now. I vividly remember when I was in my early 20s and I started to really question the identities and the history I had been told predetermined everything about my behavior. And I would ask myself, okay, can I go to this place I've been told I'm too shy to go to? And I would be like, well, can I take another step? And I would literally walk myself through things like that. I'd be like, well, am I physically capable of moving my foot another step? And I'd do it, and I'd be like, okay, well, I did it. So it's not true that I can't take another step towards this like event I was told I was too shy to go to. Can I take a second one? And then I would be at the event and my heart would be racing and my hands would be just clammy, and I would think again about all that history trying to predetermine my future. And I would check in with myself. This was after I read Eckhart Tolle's powerful book, The Power of Now. And I would ask myself, well, like, am I gonna die if I just stand here and take a few deep breaths? Okay, I'm still here. I'm still alive. I think I can do this. And that is why that is the most powerful quote that I can ever have. Because the number one thing I've ever seen people hold themselves back with are the labels that they give themselves, that they picked up somewhere in their history. And I wish so badly that instead of looking behind us to try to figure out what we're capable of in the future, we could look ahead of us with hope and creativity and just confidence that we can at least try something new, because I think we'd all be capable of accomplishing so much more. So that's why that is my favorite quote. Okay, so now that I have gone into serious Siri mode, I actually need to hurry and wrap up because my camera battery is dying, but I thought this was gonna be a short vlog. Okay. So Hannah, you asked what was my favorite part of my trip to Yellowstone, and that was definitely the bison traffic jam that we ran into. When we turned a corner on the road and the entire herd of bison was walking towards us and we were at the front of the line of cars. That was amazing.
Those are big. Why would you get both of them? Hello, my baby.
There's the baby. Look at the tiny horns on the babies.
I don't know why you would get close. Look at baby one.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, pretty cool, right? And then Mandy, hello Mandy, asked if I could choose a world from one of my series on the gaming channel to live in, which one would it be? And I think it would probably be Animal Crossing, because everything's laid back and nice. It's low-key, the stakes aren't high, and I would love to be able to spend my life with Chips on a beautiful little island like that, where we could just spend our days building a community, making cute little events, and sitting side by side on the beach. So yeah, it would be Animal Crossing, so I could share that world with Chips for sure. But I have to say, we're doing a pretty good job of mimicking a lot of the things that make me so happy in Animal Crossing in our day-to-day life, so I'm pretty proud about that. And then Mandy, you also asked, what are some other careers that I would be passionate about pursuing if I wasn't creating YouTube content? And that would probably be back to teaching biology. I love teaching biology. I used to teach it to middle school students at a nonprofit, and there was never a day that I wasn't overjoyed to be there, because it's so wonderful to see other people's eyes light up with excitement and curiosity and passion for our world, and I adored that. So I would do that again in a heartbeat. I would probably look for a nonprofit instead of a school institution though, because it was just so much more rewarding to be able to have an environment where you weren't worried about hitting test scores. You were just worried about reaching the hearts of the children who came to you. And that felt good. I didn't have to put any pressure on them beyond just hoping to draw out their own excitement and their own curiosity. And that was so much better than I think if I had been their classroom teacher, for instance, which you can still do those things, but you're also worried about test scores. So that's why I would be like, I would work at another nonprofit. That was really fun. And then the last question is from, let's see, Mina. Mina, you asked, how long is my hair? And when was the last time I cut it? My hair is now down to the back of my knees. And the last time I cut it, let's see, gotta unravel it. Okay, let's see if I can back up enough. Okay, here it is. Nope, can't back up enough. We'll try this. But my hair is down to my knees now when it's all the way down and at the back. And the last time I cut it was probably when I was 10 years old, and I will never cut it again. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. My camera's about to die. This short vlog is apparently not going to be so short, but we'll have to see what tomorrow's adventures on Vlogmas have for us, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.